All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Keys family. This wonderful podcast episode is going to be dedicated to college education, right? And making sure it's accessible to everyone. And of course, with our audience being predominantly college students, we all, I think, to a certain degree, understand the complexities of balancing school and life. Life being very different for all of us. Some of us more being traditional students, some of us more non-traditional. I've taken both paths. So we are fortunate to have Mr. Rick with us from WGU today. And he's going to talk to us a bit about not just his career path, but some of the things he sees in his work to make education more accessible for students in underserved communities. So join me in welcoming him to today's episode. Rick, for those who don't know you, and I've done all of my research, right? I've studied you and lately seen a ton of WGU commercials. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, Chris, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to chat with you this afternoon. Really, really appreciate the time. Thank you for the nice intro. For those who don't know, I am Rick Benbow, Regional Vice President for Western Governors University. We are a nonprofit online competency-based university where our mission is to create pathways to opportunity through higher education. I've been with WGU now going on 3 years. And in that 3 years, WGU has become my why. I am someone who firmly believes in the power of higher education and the opportunities that it can provide. I have 2 master's degrees, went to undergrad at Howard University, and it is through that educational experience that I find myself here today. I am one who likes to create public value, and I feel like I do well by doing good. And again, as someone who believes in higher education, I want to create those pathways for those folks or those individuals who believe in the American dream, who believe in pursuing happiness and career growth. But we know that it is through education that we begin that journey and that pathway. But with the rising cost of tuition, and the demands on time, the barriers that have been created, whether real or artificial, we need to identify alternative pathways that give individuals, those determined individuals, who believe in the power of higher education and believe in opportunity. We need to find alternative pathways for them to find their why, to find their opportunity. And WGU has given me that platform. And I am just absolutely loving every minute of it. Again, as someone who believes in the power of higher education, I started off in the corporate world, did some government work, and then took a different pathway and worked at a well-known public university here in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And in Los Angeles, the traffic is unbearable.
That's one word.
And I am a thinker and a problem solver. And my commute to work is distance-wise, it's 28 miles. But time-wise, it's about 2 hours each way.
Yikes.
And so I had a lot of time to contemplate life's problems and questions. As someone who likes to problem solve, and again, as a thinker, it dawned on me one day that, in California, in Los Angeles, if I was someone who wanted to pursue higher education to enhance my career trajectory, earn that bachelor's degree, or even earn that master's degree, how could I do it if I had to take care of family, or if I had to work? There were these barriers that existed within this construct that I'm trying to problem solve for on my commute. And at the time, it didn't seem like there was an answer. Then I received a phone call from WGU, Western Governors University, learned a little bit about this online competency-based nonprofit university. And having done the research on Western Governors University, I was able to identify the answer to the problem of how can one enhance their career trajectory or pursue higher education with the dynamics of, finances that could impact that decision, the dynamic of having to take care of a family, the dynamic of having to work full time, the dynamic of even having to navigate traffic to leave work to get to school to sit in someone's
Hmm.
classroom. And I just absolutely fell in love with the opportunity um, to work with WGU and amplify the value proposition that I think we offer to a lot of students who find themselves contemplating returning back to school or earning that master's degree so that they can enhance their career trajectory or increase their value in the workforce.
Hmm. Like you're speaking to me. I started as a non-traditional student, well, as a traditional student for 1 year, right? 1 year that I will tell you, I don't want to say it didn't count, but I can't really tell you what I learned in that first year. One, I was probably a little bit too young um, to go off to college, but after that first year, came back home and decided to join the military, have a child. My parents relocated, so I was on my own. And when I tell you I was on my own, I was 20, no, I was 19 when they left. And so 20, have a child, I have an apartment, I have a full-time job, I have a car, like, and I'm trying to piece everything together, check to check, right? So I started a couple of classes in an online program, and this was many years ago before they became more common. Started a couple of classes, and then life happened, and I was like, gosh, I just can't get my footing underneath me. So yeah, I get the need for flexibility. I understand the barriers, right? I think about money and how that came into play, and that was a major issue for me. I think about childcare. I did try brick and mortar as a mother with no real support system in place. So thinking about the cost of childcare to go to school after work, so we're talking about evening hours, that was a challenge. Um, and even beyond then, just not really being sure of what I wanted to do, right? So not having the strong career coaching and guidance in place, that was an issue. Oh, the list goes on and on. Commute, right? Not just in traffic, but public transportation, and relying on that, being from the city. So there's so many barriers, and it's nice to know that you understand what those barriers are, specifically as it relates to those in underserved communities. Um, when we think about underserved communities, I also think about diversity, right, in online learning. Um, I completed both of my degrees online. So I've got a bachelor's and a master's. Um, what are you seeing? And I don't know if you could speak to this, but what that sort of means to diverse college students, right? Having that flexibility to complete that degree, knowing that, if we're being honest, in many cases, the chips are kind of stacked against us. And so we've got to work just a little bit harder and have just a few more resources and more flexibility. And then the ability to pay for it, right? We're talking about mounting student debt. So I know I've chunked a lot of things into that, but as someone who was a first generation college student and graduate and not knowing about student loans, um, talk to me about that piece of it and sort of what you're seeing and how you're speaking to that specifically for those in underserved communities who think education, higher education, may be out of reach for them.
I think there are a couple things we probably need to unpack there,
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of get to the like what these barriers may be.
Hmm.
So first of all, let's just take into account the escalating cost of tuition. Since 1980, the inflation um, rate of tuition has increased like 169%.
Yikes.
During that same time, salaries for young workers has only increased 19%. And so here we have the cost of attendance increasing more than one can earn
Yeah.
essentially after graduation. And so as a student, going in, you don't necessarily think about this, right?
Right.
But as you get closer to graduation, life inevitably happens. You start to think about your career. You start to think about that debt. You start to think about
Mhm.
where is the return on investment. And a lot of times it may be difficult to see where that connection may be between the cost of attendance and the job that you want.
Mhm. Mhm.
In underserved communities, oftentimes to stay in school, we will take on maybe that part-time job. Typically, that part-time job doesn't necessarily align with the degree program that we're enrolled in.
Yep.
And so even as we complete that journey of higher education, we enter the workforce, we have a misalignment between what we may be trained in
Mhm.
from a educational perspective to where we have our experience.
Yeah.
And as technology has kind of impacted, in all phases of organizations and employment, what I am finding is that oftentimes those students who may have that misalignment um, will not make it past the initial HR phase because the algorithm will see that the degree program doesn't necessarily align with their experience. And so that's a dilemma that we have to deal with.
Mhm.
And again, with the cost of higher tuition and the salaries not increasing, we find ourselves um, not earning enough money to pay back their student loan.
Mhm.
And so as these stories get passed around, you know, underserved students begin to question the value of higher education. And I think that's the dilemma that we find ourselves in. We
Mhm.
see enrollment dropping. We see
Mhm.
students looking for alternative pathways to earn a living, to take care of the family, to pay the cell phone bill, to pay the car note, to pay for public transportation, to pay for childcare.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we have somewhere in this 20, 30-year period, we have lost um, what higher education attainment means. Um, the promise of higher education has been lost
Mhm.
because of this dilemma. With WGU, because we're online, we're competency based, we're affordable, we're flexible, I think our model allows those non traditional students to be able to minimize those barriers
Mhm.
in terms of earning a living, to take care of the family, to take care of bills, to navigate life, and take courses on their time at an affordable rate.
Mhm.
And then our mentor component of our educational model also helps.
Awesome.
And so I think, to me, this model allows those underserved students who are in that non-traditional pathway.
Mhm.
To me, it gives them agency to control the alignment of their experience and their degree program. And so that upon graduation, they have some value in the workforce.
Mhm.
Say, for example, you can work as an accounting clerk and earn your degree on your time at WGU in accounting. Our average graduation rate, I think, is 2 years and 4 months.
Oh, wow.
And so 2 years and 4 months, you have 2 years and 4 months of practical work experience as an accounting clerk.
Mhm.
You graduate with an accounting degree.
Mhm.
We can connect the dots now with experience, program alignment, and real workforce value,
Yeah.
and now career trajectory. The return on investment will be there. There's not this lead time or lag time between trying to find that job that aligns
Mhm.
with your program to realize that value.
Mhm.
I think there are some statistics that bear out the fact that if you are underemployed in your first year of employment, you will be underemployed for the next 5 consecutive jobs. And that's that's that dilemma that I think underserved students find themselves in,
Mhm.
where they're chasing that alignment and it takes them a while to get there. And there are a lot of other factors that kind of go into that with the
Yeah.
workforce. But as we move more to a skills-based economy, I think it's going to be critical um, for underserved students, students of color, to be able to align their experience with their program degree as quickly as possible so that they can realize the value of that higher education degree or that higher education journey, so they get the return on investment of time and money.
I could not agree with you more, Rick. I had a conversation with a young lady probably a week and a half ago or so. Um, and her major was in HR. She did what she was told she needed to do. So she went through and obtained her bachelor's and then she got her master's in HR and she came out and she said, Christina, I couldn't find a job. And, I had a child. And so, I figured I'd play around and do makeup, but that wasn't what I thought I would do with my degree in HR. And I said to her, I said, this is a conversation I've had for so many years as an HR professional, specifically in the early talent space, specifically with a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I said, you have to get the experience too, right? And so I talked to her about the importance of internships, and I talked to her about the importance of volunteering and resume building activities while you're in school. And she's like, I wish I knew that. And that to me was heartbreaking. I was like, we don't know what we don't know, right? And I said, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I need to spread the word, right? And talk to people about here's what you might be missing, right? Education is great. As a recruiter for the past several years, I talk to students about internships and how to secure one and networking. And it sounds like WGU has that mentorship component where those conversations are taking place in school. You'd be surprised how many students come out and don't have a clue about the importance of gaining that work experience while you pursue your education. Because I'm just going to say it, Rick, I don't think a degree is enough these days. You have to have the experience so you can then implement it, position yourself for success in whatever your field is, and start paying back those student loans. Does that sound pretty much like what you're seeing?
Yes, yes, and I think even more so to elaborate on your point just a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
is that the shelf life of skills you acquire through education is short-lived.
Yeah.
Again, because technology is impacting all phases of employment. And so I think one of the things that I get excited about WGU is, again, creating pathways to opportunity, but really converting those students who didn't think the higher education journey was for them,
Mm-hmm.
but converting them to lifelong learners because we can realize the return on investment,
Mm-hmm.
um, because we're attaining valuable skills that are in demand in the workforce. And there is a direct correlation with skill attainment, career trajectory. And once people realize that, the thirst for knowledge and
Mm-hmm.
seeking out new additional skills just seems to be more motivating and it enables folks to have a little bit more confidence about taking ownership of their career
Mm-hmm.
as well as their educational journey.
So critical. And let's pause for 2 seconds. I mean, education is great. You touched on something earlier about mounting student debt, right? Mounting debt in general. Um, I'll tell you, I didn't know what I didn't know. So after my first year, I mentioned I was 17 when I wrapped up my first year of college. And my mom said, I can't afford to send you back. We're going to retire and relocate. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? Um, and so I didn't know how to find the money. I didn't know how to have the conversation with someone to say, I need help paying for college. Recognizing that finances are a major hurdle, especially for many of us who are first generation college students. How do you find the money to pay for school? I appreciate the fact that WGU is affordable, but how do we even pay for that? Talk to me a little bit about the financial piece.
Again, this is why I think WGU is really one of the best options out there for students who find themselves questioning whether or not they can afford uh, higher education in general.
Mm-hmm.
Our tuition model, number one, we're nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
We're very student centric and we understand these barriers and we work to minimize these barriers as much as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Our average tuition, it's a flat rate 6-month tuition, is a little over $4,000 per 6-month term.
Oh, wow.
With that, you can take and complete as many courses as you possibly can within that 6 months. The tuition rate does not increase. Because
Wow.
we're competency based,
Mm-hmm.
we're measuring not necessarily seat time, but we're measuring learning and skill attainment. As you demonstrate mastery of the skills and competencies associated with the course,
Mm-hmm.
you can advance.
Mm-hmm.
And so this model has really helped those students who may be working in HR on a part-time basis or even full-time basis and attending WGU.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, we had a student who actually was in HR in Stockton, California,
Mm-hmm.
graduated high school, um, non-traditional student, went to work full-time right after high school graduation, kind of as an HR clerk, HR aide,
Mm-hmm.
and enrolled in community college. Took him 6 years to complete his associate's degree. But during that 6-year time frame, he had amassed 6 years of HR experience.
Yeah.
Felt he was a little behind his high school cohort and was looking for ways to accelerate his career path
Mm-hmm.
and stumbled upon WGU. Leveraged his 6 years in HR and the fact that he earned a couple of human resource certificates while attending community college.
Nice.
Leveraged his associate's degree, his SHRM certificates,
Mm-hmm.
enrolled in WGU in the College of Business as an HR major. He was able to accelerate to his bachelor's degree in human resources within 10 months.
Wow. I love that story.
Competency-based education it's not about seat time, it's about being able to demonstrate the skills and competencies associated with the course.
Yeah.
Our model is a game changer for those non-traditional students, for whatever reason, are underserved by the traditional brick and mortar pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And again, for those underserved communities that find themselves um, unable to attend brick and mortar, looking at the escalating cost, the WGU pathway is a way that I think delivers on the outcomes of higher education. We are student centric. We're focused on removing those barriers.
Mm-hmm.
Our cost model, our tuition structure, the competency-based model allows those motivated and determined students to really control the cost and the time associated with skill attainment and higher education degree attainment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you really focus in on the two barriers that non-traditional students find themselves facing, it's the time component, but it's also the cost component. WGU's model was built to minimize those so that those traditional underserved students don't have to consider that. If they're
Yeah.
determined and motivated, they absolutely have control over those components and can accelerate to degree completion or not. The choice is absolutely theirs. But the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to control those two barriers or those factors uh, is available with the WGU model.
You've said it a couple of times, and I just want to reiterate the importance of determination, um, because life will inevitably happen along the way. Um, Things happen. I could think of the many reasons I pulled out of college. Like I said, I've been to 5 or 6. It literally took me 15 years from the day I left or graduated from St. John's Prep in Astoria to the day I graduated with my bachelor's. 15 years. In the process, I had 2 children, went to the military, worked, obtained those certifications you mentioned. So I have my SHRM CP, I have my PHR from HRCI. Um, but getting that degree was always on the list of things to do. It never left, right? So that determination is a critical component. And as long as you come in with that and that motivation, so understanding your why, understanding why this is important, it sounds like WGU will provide the resources and the support to move the needle forward with you, not for you, but with you, holding your hand along the way.
Yes. So students who enter Western Governors University are assigned a program mentor from the moment they enroll to the moment they graduate. There are conference calls or meetings established with the program mentor as students are, engaged in their journey through WGU, helping them navigate those life issues, helping them navigate family emergencies, making sure that they're on time and progressing at a pace in which, the individual may have established goals in terms of how long they wanted to take. The program mentor is there to help them along their journey, provide the guidance, identify issues, help them talk through issues, but all the while supporting that student through their journey to ensure that they progress and persist and ultimately achieve their goals that they establish upon entering WGU.
So I know we're coming up on time, and I think about the premise of the show, right? The keys to the office. So giving students, Black and Latinx students, essentially the keys to move forward in their career path, whatever that might be. Education is a critical component of that, hands down. I'm clearly a believer in the importance of education. Talk to me, or even better yet, talk to that student who's somewhere in college, at this point, maybe traditional or non-traditional student. And I think at some point we may even get rid of those terms because the lines are so great. But talk to me about the student who's sitting there today and they're like, the current program I'm in is wearing me out. I'm not getting what I think I need. It might be time for a change. I don't want to give up. My children are watching everything I do. What's that major key? What's that next step you'd suggest if they're considering either stopping or shifting gears or just uncertain? I know it's probably tough to wrap it up into one neat little key, but kind of put a bow on it for us.
This is where I believe, wholeheartedly in the WGU platform. I think we're seeing, what you described bearing out in different ways in today's marketplace with the Great Resignation.
Yeah.
Even with folks who are currently working, maybe dissatisfied or unsatisfied with their current position and looking to pivot. Maybe even students who realize, a couple of years into their journey that their chosen major or program is really not what they're passionate about.
Yep.
Again, if education is that first step to that opportunity that you're seeking and that why and where you think you can add value to society or find your passion, then again, what comes into consideration is the time and cost of that pivot. If you're looking at it from the traditional model, you look at it from the perspective of what those current costs are for that state school, that public university, or that private institution. And almost immediately you get discouraged because the price point is too high. Can I afford to leave my job and take on, X amount of debt or pay X amount of money to make this pivot? As a student in second year or third year in the journey, do I want to go back to zero and start all over and incur
Yes. Been there, done that.
The WGU model, because it's affordable, because it's competency based, allows you to maybe minimize, again, the time and cost associated with pursuing higher education. Where you get real added value because we're, competencies and skills based. We work with employers and organizations to ensure that our curriculum is aligned with those demands.
I love it.
For skills and competencies in the workforce so that when you graduate, those skills and competencies are relevant.
Yeah.
The price point is such that you can accelerate to your degree or to your degree. Again, if you're determined and motivated, we have some phenomenal stories
Mm-hmm.
of those determined individuals who are accelerating to their degree within a year. And so now, I can say if the average cost of the 6-month term is a little over 4,000, I'm looking at $8,000 if I'm determined and motivated to
Mm-hmm.
make that pivot. That's a lot different than maybe the average cost of tuition and considering time in the traditional pathway. And so again, I think this is where the WGU model again is really resonating with those individuals who don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily think higher education is for them.
Mm-hmm.
We're converting them to lifelong learners, and I think that's where we absolutely move the needle.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we add value, and we make the career pivot. We make that change in direction. We make that skill attainment um, reasonable, and we connect the dots to real workforce value in the marketplace.
And you impact generational wealth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's huge. The ripple effect.
Yes.
The
Yes.
ripple effect in our communities. Rick, I can't.
I'll
Go ahead.
just share this really, really, really quick.
Yeah, please.
And you talk about parents who understand that their children are looking and, some oftentimes those parents who don't have that degree
Mm-hmm.
want to see their children pursue that degree. But it's hard as a parent when you're telling your child to pursue something because it's good for them, but you feel guilty, but you haven't done it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a family, WGU grads,
Mm-hmm.
um, 4 family members, and they have 7 degrees from WGU.
Wow. Wow.
They're it is life changing.
Yeah,
It is gratifying
I love it.
to see that there are other pathways um, for higher education attainment. There are alternative pathways for skill attainment. Uh, there are alternative pathways where individuals can take ownership of the value and potential that they see in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is remarkable what we're doing here at WGU, and I'm just happy to be a part of the WGU family and creating these. Actually, just highlighting the pathway that we can provide to individuals
Mm-hmm.
um, to take ownership of their career trajectory, change lives, impact lives, and generational wealth, if you will.
Yeah.
Um,
It's that serious. Which,
yes,
yeah,
absolutely,
it's that
absolutely.
serious. Um, I love it. And I can't thank you enough for carving out the time to chat with me, to chat with the Keys family, because we need more conversations like this. Oftentimes we feel stuck and on an island by ourselves, right? Especially if we're the only one in our community or in our home who's pursuing higher education. So being able to talk through the obstacles, the hurdles, um, and know that there's support available to get you over those and to get you to your goal, like that's critical. We could talk about, careers all day, but like the education piece is so critical that I can't thank you enough for the work you're doing, Rick.
Oh, thank you for the time and the opportunity to share some of the great things we're doing here at WGU.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you on behalf of the family. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch and catch up soon.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.